Rebecca, I found your page at 3 a.m. today. I went through some videos and I'm so grateful for you. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. I'm glad that you enjoy my content. I've made a lot of playlists in order to help people. If you look at the top of my page, there's different playlist buttons, and I also have them linked onto my website as well. And all my material is free for you. Everybody's on different paths, and we're all trying to get kind of the same goal. So just it's up to you. But I'm very grateful for your support and likes, and very appreciative for everybody who is on the path to education, because there's not a whole lot of us. Well, there are people that are doing education, but a lot of them are indoctrinated and not interested in thinking outside of the box or looking into things that are outside of what the public mainstream supporters and funders for all the education provide. And that's one of the downsides to just kind of coasting along and going with the flow. Everybody assumes that like all products on the shelf are healthy, and I don't think the FDA has actually approved anything that is healthy ever. They always basically like cigarettes. FDA approved cigarettes. Like, think about that. That's like, whenever somebody asks me about like FDA standards, I always go to that as my gold standard, as like look at what they're approving. It's crazy. Rebecca, I always got called crazy for my views. Let all those people go last year. I still wish they'll wake up. Honestly, one of my hardest things to grasp was to allow people to have their own views and allow them to have their own sight and vision, because what happens is the more awake you become, the more that you actually get elevated in your frequency and your body and your education and your come from. And they're down here, they're down living in their like animalistic kind of chakras and walking around not really having a clue. And what's most important is your come from and trying to offer a safe space for them, right? So it's very frustrating when you become more and more and more awake and you see how many people are asleep and blinded and walking around like sheep. And the most important thing is to always try to come from love and offer a safe space and try to like plant little seeds when you can, because the stuff that we're awake to is absolutely crazy. So how it works is in an insane world, it is the sane that look crazy, right? So we're actually sane because we're able to think out the box and look up stuff and do research and find out like, hey, stuff's not really how they're portraying it to be, or stuff isn't really, way we were always taught, And it blows my mind all the time when I learn stuff. When I learn stuff about like giant ancient trees and giants and, the Earth's actual shape and stuff like that, like, we're all being fooled all the time, and it's all part of the game of the people that control all the education and the rulers of the world's largest corporations that want to keep us blinded in boxes and separated in division. And they know that if we came together in unity, how powerful we would be. Even in our own mind, we're able to like shape our own reality and heal ourselves and like do all kinds of things to matter. And the controllers and rulers of the natural realm that play in the natural light know these things, so they constantly try to teach and preach division. That's why there's always got to be a loser, a winner, a different race, somebody's poor and poverty, instead of trying to bring everybody together and teach like how we're all one. Veronica, hola, welcome, moderator. Chilling in nice warm weather out there. I'm going to be getting real cold here in a couple weeks. I'm going to be going to Turkey. It's going to be probably frozen out there. So, Soul Medicine Woman, please talk about how you made your own ID. So I basically just, when you get real proficient in Word and Photoshop and stuff like that, you can alter documents. But what I particularly did with my national ID was I just looked at like what the big boys do, like how does the United States issue identification and certification and stuff like that, and try to do similar fashion. And that's what I also tell people about when they try to make their own plates. Yes, you can travel without a license. You can travel, I always suggest having the true title to the property that you're traveling in, but a lot of people want to put all this like, screw the police, private, exempt, like all these red flags all over the car where you stick out like a red thumb. Like, make it look very similar to the municipality and locale that you're traveling in. You don't want to stick out like a sore thumb and say like, I'm above the law, you know, because sheep can't handle assets. That's how the whole system operates. Is the public is bankrupt, uneducated, and crazy, and they can't handle the truth. Like, you can't handle the truth. So, but I made it on Photoshop and had it notarized, and you know, always keep stuff in a box when you're using a notary. Now, a notary is a very, very powerful agent. They can operate in the private and in the public, and they're basically an extension of the Secretary of State. They're an agent for the local Secretary of State, and they're able to authenticate stuff. And I basically had a notary authenticate my signature on the document, and then have the notary seal authenticated on the state level. I tried to do it on the federal level, and they were like, you need to do this through Homeland Security or something. Like, they were like, we don't authenticate stuff like this. And I thought it was wild, because I spent all the time and effort and money to try to get I thought it was going to be cool having the U.S. seal, because I was trying to authenticate it like you would a birth certificate. So I had my ID, then I had it authenticated locally, and then I tried to go federal. But when I sent that sucker to the U.S. Department of State, they sent it back and were like, you need to contact Homeland Security. Like, this is not stuff we do, or something. Like I don't know if they're trying to say I was a threat, but I even called them and stuff, and they were like, yeah, that's just not something that we're going to authenticate, because it could be construed that we're endorsing what you're doing. And I was just trying to get the Secretary of State local's seal authenticated. But they looked at the document that was authenticated, which was a national ID, and they were kind of like, yeah, we're not going to put our seal on top of this. But if I got that U.S. seal on top of it, it would have been pretty freaking boss. Like, I was like so stoked to like walk around and flash that sucker anywhere. You know, I could I could use what I got now and take it to like nightclubs or whatever if I wanted to. And it would be really strange, and they might not accept it, they might accept it. But if I had that U.S. seal on top, that freaking, that big corporation seal, it'd have been pretty official. So I had a couple interesting things. A couple videos ago, I mentioned that when I posted it, TikTok asked me, do you want your views to go out slowly over time? Do you want your views to happen real fast? Are you looking for more follows, more likes? And I just X'd it out, because I want to educate people. That's my walk. That's my goal. Now, my video on taxes, after 2 days, it had only seen, I don't know, 6,000 people, 7,000 people or something. I was just kind of like, dang, I thought for sure it was going to go to 10, 20,000 people. But it's almost up to 14,000 now, and it's been a week. So it looks like what they're doing now is they are just slowly releasing the video content to a lot of people, instead of just massively shooting it out real quick. But I don't know. I'll keep doing some of these popular commercial videos and see how it reacts. But they're constantly like doing different things when you put videos up on there. I also have some interesting things that happen on my video. So, and you know, I enjoy educating and talking to people and keeping them enlightened to, you know, my points of view of how everything works and operates, because I think I have a pretty simplistic way to break everything down to the fundamentals where everything makes sense, you know. And that's how I try to operate, is I break everything down to the elements, down to its simplest form, and then build off of those foundations that I know can't be shaken. So, but I'm always open to more different views or different people's interpretations of things, or what they think, because I do not know everything. Actually, I claim I know no thing, and it takes a lot for me to take a position on something in order to make a statement, because I typically try to keep the neutral position on things. So here's some interesting things that happen. What's up, Jimmy? I put out my tax video, and I had a guy come on there, and we went back and forth over and over and over again. So he was coming from the position that he knows, and I was sending him everything. He said he knows that a person can be a corporation. He knows that an individual can be a corporation. And we just started chatting back and forth. I'm like, look, do you have a tax identification number? He's like, I have a social security, which is like a tax identification number. I was like, so basically how he started off the conversation was he's trying to say, everything on your tax video was great except for where you said humans don't get taxed. That's total BS, blah, 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 blah. So then I approached him and I said, look, do you have a tax identification number? He said, I have a social security number, which is a type of tax identification number. I was like, all right, do you know that an individual and a person is a corporation? And he was like, an individual can be a corporation, a person can be a corporation. And I'm like, look, the U.S. citizen is an individual trust that is, and I'm sending him U.S. codes, I'm sending the tax codes, I'm sending him case law, I'm sending him Black's Law Dictionary stuff, I'm sending him all this stuff, and he was still thinking, he's like, no, I'm a human that has a tax identification number, and I'm like, you're not a human that has a tax identification number. Only humans or corporations can have tax identification numbers. So anyway, we went back and forth, and I'm like, you're so close to grasping that the U.S. citizen is a corporation. Just like, come on, man. I was like trying to shake him, and then so I finally asked him. I was like, look, I'll tell you what. I've shown you all these codes, case laws, definitions, all this stuff. Why don't you show me anywhere it's written where a human is taxed? How about that? Why don't you just do that? And no response, and there won't be a response, because that's not how it works. That's not how it operates. And I'm always trying to learn and be educated. So when someone comes on one of my videos and they say, hey, you have this wrong, or this needs to be changed, or this, I'm always open and want to say, I'm here to learn. Like, tell me what you think needs to be changed, or is different or wrong, because I like I said, I always try to take a neutral position, especially when trying to learn, because I used to think the Earth was a globe, until I started doing thousands of hours of research, and I'm like, there's no way it's spinning, like, there's no way. So, but when I call someone out, so like for instance, one guy said that I know nothing about contracts, and I was like, yeah, I do. They start verbally, and the piece of paper is the memorialization of what transpired. So he's like, first of all, you have to have 2 wet ink signatures on a contract for it to be valid. And I was like, can you show me where that is written, or where you got that information? I was like, I would love to know where you found that, because that's not true from my understanding, because whenever you're doing a contract from like a company, normally they will type their name into a blank, and that is basically their signature. And I know that works as a signature because I have tried to do a restrictive endorsement from the IRS, or a restrictive signature from a particular person in the IRS, and they just stamped IRS on the freaking green card receipt. And I was like, and then from then on, I actually signed my name in all capital letters. Like, if you want to do it in all lowercase, then you're basically saying that that's a sovereign type of entity. But when you sign in all capitals, it's basically like you're representing that corporation. It's just a corporation, a limited liability shield that you can use as a buffer. So yeah, Jimmy, let's talk about it. Hey, SP Brown, start a Facebook group. So I actually stay off of Facebook. It's like a CIA ran type of thing. I do have Instagram. I don't really use that much, or Facebook. And Facebook is mainly comprised of most of my friends and family, quote unquote. And none of them know or can handle a lot of the stuff that I talk about or teach. I'm blackballed. I started off this conversation talking about how, with Rebecca, that it sounds crazy, the stuff that we're talking about, even though it's all true. It doesn't matter. And even my grandfather told me that when I tried to teach him some of this stuff. He was like, it doesn't matter if it's true, like, just stop talking about it. It's crazy. Like, your friends and family normally can't accept it. Like, when I went vegan, I had family that thought I was going to get brain cancer. They thought I was going to die. They thought I was going to be malnourished. They were talking about like wanting to mail me vitamins and stuff like that. And I'm like, where do you think all the animals that you eat get their vitamins from? They get it from the plants. They get it from the earth. Like, everything comes from the earth. Like, what do you use to make your meat taste good? You usually rub herbs and stuff in it. Like, it's, I don't know. So, but I will say that animals' bodies filter out a lot of the herbicides, pesticides, and stuff that they spray on the plants. And when you're eating just straight plants, you got to be careful, because it will have a lot of Roundup and herbicides and pesticides and stuff on it. And then you're the animal that is filtering that. So you got to be careful. It'll mess you up a little bit. All right. ... Bloated statements coming from someone who claims to be so humble. I don't know. What did I say that was bloated? Bloated. That's kind of a weird word to say. ... All right. Thanks for the follow, user 915. Veronica, thanks for posting the website. Thanks for posting it twice. and I can't tell what you pinned again. I even looked into the settings. I know you said go into the settings and try to, you know, change and see if I could see what you pinned, but I have not been able to find something like that. All Credits 92. Do you subscribe to the national movement? I have studied a lot of the national stuff, and it is just a person, which is by definition a corporation, and a national is a entity that you can represent should you so choose. Then it's typically outside of U.S. jurisdiction unless you start to put that national into contractual obligations that give up benefits and privileges, like dealing with Federal Reserve notes or trying to be like engaged in for-profit commerce, or, you know, stuff like that. So typically a national is outside of U.S. jurisdiction and is able to hold true title to property. Now, a U.S. citizen is not allowed to hold true title to property because the U.S. is bankrupt and the U.S. citizen is a franchise of the U.S. So citizens aren't allowed to hold assets in the public. It's all debt. That's what Federal Reserve notes are. That's why we get certificates of title and stuff like that. Rebecca Monroe. When you know your stuff, you don't have to be humble. No, that's you don't have to, but I always try to preach and say that it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. So when you try to teach people, you always want to be very humble and come from love and peace. And I didn't know that I was being, not peaceful or coming from love. But all I was saying is when people post on my videos and try to say that they have conflicting information, I usually try to lead them straight. I say like look, I have playlists, or you can, if there's something that you think is different than my point of view, please tell me, all the time. If you want to re-educate me, I'm fine. Like, I've been studying for years and years and years and years, and I've learned to always open my doors and be accepting that I didn't. Veronica, you did nothing to get that comment bloated. I've never. That's new to me. I have never in my life heard somebody say that you have a bloated comment. Like, that's like full of water, full of something. But that's funny. But by all means, if you don't like my come from, you can always leave. That's all. I'm here to try to teach and love and light and unity, and how to elevate the consciousness of everybody to be on a higher plane of understanding, and how to operate and how the world operates. Because I've spent a lot of time breaking down everything. It's very simply, when you look at contracts, or you look at corporations, or you look at entities, you look at words, you look at the body. Like, I've broken down all kinds of things. The spirit's a little different. It's a lot different ball game when you're dealing in the spiritual realm. It's a whole different set of rules and laws that we aren't typically used to. And for instance, like when you dream, you're in the subconscious and the unconscious realm playing around, and look at all the stuff that can happen in a dream. Like, that's spiritual. Like, you can actually control your dreams, but it takes a lot of time and practice, and you can test yourself. And that's what a lot of the stuff that goes on in the dream world is about. Is normally you're testing yourself and trying yourself and reproving yourself. All right, happy Friday, everybody. This is the Charles Show. I know that a lot of people are probably enjoying their day off from yesterday, and it was like ghost town around here in my office. I enjoyed it. I was the only one in my office. I got to like lounge on the couch. I was just chilling, freaking playing Candy Crush. Like, it was like I owned the whole building, because I don't celebrate any holidays except for Independence Day. And it's funny because Independence Day is not the day that independence was achieved. It's when they tried to claim it, and that's a start. But it's so it's kind of funny in my mind that I was here yesterday, and it was just ghost town. I was walking around in flip-flops and slippers, just kind of chilling, drinking coffee and just having fun. Thanks for the taps and likes and follows. If anybody has any questions, I set all this up to help enlighten anybody on anything. It doesn't matter. It could be about nature. It could be about fluoride, EMF. It could be about directed energy weapons, chemtrails. It can be about commercial processes, IRS, tax fraud, contracts, anything and everything. I'm a free open book, and this time is for y'all, to try to help y'all out. And it's a lot easier for me to help one-on-one in this platform than it is to make a video every single time. But I typically do, like, if there's a lot of stuff that reoccurs, I will make a video about it, just like on my last video about misinformation. And it shook a lot of people up, talking about the misinformation. But it gets kind of old after a while when you deal with the same stuff over and over and over again about misinformation, and people are paying for this stuff. People are paying for all these classes, and I'm here trying to help re-educate for free on the truth and the light and the life, and it's just crazy. And I almost feel like people would take me more serious if I charged, freaking $5 a pop in order to get on my website, or freaking paid for courses or stuff like that. And hi Mimi, how you doing? Thanks for joining. I appreciate it. I didn't know if you'd like that video I sent you or not, but and I get into great conversations with great people all the time, and I'm always learning, and we're always trying to bounce each other, edify each other, and that's part of the walk. It's not easy to find a lot of people that are trying to be awake and become awakened and stuff like that. So Mimi, it's a lot of my people charging for misinformation. Yes, a lot of them are, and that's what I was saying just now. It's like, if I feel like if I freaking was charging, I feel like people would take more serious. Like, even one of my favorite mentors, he would charge $2 a week, like $2 a week, just to give like a class about. He'd talk for an hour and a half, just like I'm doing on here on TikTok Live, and on average, I'm probably making 50 cents per hour that I talk on here through gifts. So it takes me a little while to earn enough to like promote a video, but when I do get gifts, I end up using those to promote videos to enlighten more people. So but I feel like if I was charging, like even like I said, one of my favorite mentors, he would charge $2 a week, and it was like the amount, what you're getting for the $2, it was just gold. It was so much gold. But I started branching out a little more into YouTube and trying to get a little more, because TikTok sometimes be acting kind of funny, and they just removed my video. They muted it. They muted my video. They waited until I had 30,000 views, and even though it was a video just making fun and having fun, this jank had 30,000 views, and then they're gonna mute it, and then they're gonna say you got to change the sound. And I was like, you're telling me this now after 30,000 views? And I went on there, and it was like, you can change the sound to this or that. But I don't know if any of y'all know about recording or how master files work or whatever, but I was talking the whole time, and if you change the sound, basically I would just be moving my lips, and I would have some weird different random song just playing in the background, and it just basically made the whole video pointless. So I locked it up into my private files or whatever, because it's pointless now. But it's like, thanks after 30,000 views, you just suddenly decided that my video was copywritten or something. So it is what it is. I'm playing on somebody else's platform and got to abide by the rules and the benefits and privileges of using their stuff. All credits 92. There's some people out there claiming the USA Corp went bankrupt. Any thoughts? Yeah, it was a declaration. It was an executive order in 1933 that Federal Delano Roosevelt declared the U.S. bankrupt in 1933, and it's been in a perpetual state of bankrupt and a perpetual state of national emergency since then. Every U.S. president has had to declare a state of national emergency since 1933, and the second executive order that was passed in 1933 was to update the Trading with the Enemy Act to include all U.S. citizens that had gold. It was like they were trying to sneakily do it, but that's what they quote unquote claimed. They just amended the Trading with the Enemy Act to include U.S. citizens, and then after that happened, they merged the Alien Property Custodian into the Treasury Department. So the Alien Property Custodian used to deal in only enemy assets, and when the U.S. citizens became enemies in 1933 and like 1934, they merged the Alien Property Custodian into the Treasury so that they could deal with U.S. citizens' assets, which are in the private. U.S. citizens can only deal with debt and bankruptcy in the public, but in the private, there's assets. All right, so, I have many mentors. I have many. Jordan Maxwell, Jack Smith, Brandon Adams, Carl Lentz, on and on. I have like a list of them on my Telegram group at the top. I have a list of recommended books. I have a list of all the people that I learned from growing up over the last 10 years. And I learn a little bit from everybody, and I put together a huge picture, because there's nobody that I've met that is like 100% on par in view with what I have, and I probably never will. But I'm really good at like putting together big kid puzzles and figuring out things, and that's why I try to break things down to its simplest element. Like, even like you start looking into atoms, how there's a neutral, a positive, and a negative, and it's just like that's the building blocks for everything in and out. Like even up to this triangle, where it's nature, spirit, and commerce. Nature is negative, spirit is positive, and commerce is neutral. It depends on what you do with your commerce that determines everything. All right, so Mintus Yochin, use their sound and turn it down to almost silent. So I can't use their sound. So what happened was I wanted to make a funny video, and I used someone's beat in the background that I didn't go through like TikTok or CapCut. I just went off YouTube, ripped the sound off of it, and put it on my playlist because I thought it had a neat beat. And I was talking on top of it and made the edits on CapCut, and then they ended up muting the whole thing. So it's like completely muted. So the whole video is just no audio, and they were like, you can replace the sound, but they don't remove just the sound of the instrumental. They remove my voice also, and then when I replace the sound, it's going to just put it on top of it and just be like just playing music the whole time. So it basically became pointless. Now, yes, I can remake that video and put it back out, but it was just a funny video, and it's a pain in the butt, and I don't feel like dealing with it, so keep it moving. Rebecca, I'm trying to figure out what else to send CFOs besides Form 1099, 56, and handwritten letter. So what is the CFO in like obligation and regarding to? Like, is this for like a credit card? Is it for a bank loan? Is it for like what are you trying to do with the CFO? Because a 1099, you could mean like a 1099 contractor, you could mean a 1099A. You're talking about a 56 form fiduciary. I know that, but 1099, it depends on what you're doing. And if you're going to start doing 1099s, unless you're going to be an employee, you need to have an agreement between the CFO. And CFOs are able to deal in the books on the private and the public, and they are typically in charge of all the financial responsibilities on accounts, and those are one of the only officers that can bind a corporation into contractual obligations. So it's very important to deal with CFOs, CEOs, and or presidents, because those are the three that can bind a corporation. Willie Johnson 3321, they have to create emergencies to keep up their scam. Yeah, so what they're doing is it's called emergency war powers, and that's why on my last video where I talked about being a belligerent in order to get rights. So what somebody said is there's a difference between a belligerent and a belligerent claimant, and I looked into a belligerent claimant, and there is a difference. And there is a Supreme Court case that says that a belligerent claimant got a remedy, but the belligerent claimant was represented by a lawyer, and the lawyer was trying to disclose personal private information that the guy did not want released into the court case, and he was being a belligerent claimant trying to stop it, and he actually won that case. But the only other case I could find out about got dismissed. It was a belligerent claimant talking about his all capital U.S. name, blah blah blah. The only two cases on belligerent claimant, one was arguing with a lawyer, and the other one got dismissed. And that's where like wildfires of this misinformation get spread around, where people try to say, oh, you got to be a belligerent in order to get your remedies. No. So ever since 1933, the perpetual state of a national emergency has been enacted so they can continue to perpetuate emergency war powers, and they have those powers over enemies, U.S. citizens, and that's why you have to always come from peace and in love. We are the authorized representatives. We are the trustees. We are the humans that basically are representative of the U.S. citizen and can move it and do things, but we're in charge of all the duties, taxes, debts, and liabilities on that entity. So if you start being a belligerent or an enemy or a combatant, basically all bets are off. Like the Constitution is suspended. You have no rights or remedies or recourse like when you're an enemy, because you're an enemy. Imagine you're supposed to love your enemy, but that is not what the U.S. does to their enemies. Like, trust me, I have dealt with their systems for the last 10 years. The U.S. does not really treat its enemies very fair. However, you could say that they are giving citizens benefits and privileges, because a license is permission to do something illegal. So a U.S. citizen has to be licensed in order to do business in the U.S. So they grant licenses, and you have all kinds of benefits and privileges from using those licenses. Like you get to pay taxes, tags, liability. You get to use Federal Reserve notes. All kinds of benefits for playing inside of that corporation, and you get to use their fiat Chuck E. Cheese money inside of that corporation. It's just like if you try to take the Chuck E. Cheese lose money to another corporation like Egypt, like it doesn't work in that casino. You can only play with that fake fiat monopoly money inside of the casino of the U.S. And it's I have weird views on things, but that's just how I break stuff down. All right, so Mimi, you can record your live with an audio recording and link them afterwards. Yes, that's what I actually started doing, because I've had my live cut 2 or 3 times, and 2 of them were for talking about political things, about like Trump and Biden. And then the other one was, I was just reading what somebody wrote. There was a guy who liked other guys, and he was saying on here that he got beat up. And I said what he said. I was like, oh, they beat you up because you were, you like men? And they thought I was doing hate crime or hate speech or something, and they misinterpreted. And there's a lot of times when I'm talking on here and I'm just looking and I'm like, are they going to cut this sucker? Then they cut it one time when I was talking about how to prove if you want to be a national or not, just putting it on paper. Like, there's times on here where I'm talking about stuff where I'm sure they're going to cut the live, and then they don't. And then one time they just cut it at the very end when I was talking about how to prove that, to enforce your paperwork and position on what entity you want to represent, and they cut it. But I kept recording, so I have a recording over top of this. So now, that's what I'm saying, I've learned my lesson. So when they cut the live, I can keep going. And I finished my live. I just finished it out. There was nobody there. It was blank, but I kept recording. So guys, this live will be on YouTube. My YouTube is linked onto my website. My website is linked onto my profile page of TikTok. I have all kinds of great information on my website that's free to browse around. I have playlists on my profile as well to re-educate you. That's called Foundation, Nature, Spirit, and Commerce. I always suggest that everybody goes through those and try to relearn how the whole world works. At least from my point of view, I've tried to break everything down as simple as I can, because when I found out about this triangle, it basically like locked everything that I've ever known or could know into one simple diagram, and that's what I try to release to y'all, the understanding and the laying of the foundation of nature, spirit, and commerce. All right, let's answer some more questions. So, Rebecca, I'm talking about the Bills of Exchange Act. I want to learn how to endorse my bill. So, Rebecca, when you're starting to you can put a restrictive endorsement on any type of instrument that you want. Now, when you start dealing in the public financial arena or the private financial arena, you have to be very, very learned on what a U.S. citizen or an authorized representative to the U.S. citizen is allowed to do. So even when you sign a check, it says authorized or representative. You are dealing with someone else's game. So, for instance, if you're going to play Mortal Kombat, you can't just go on there and start messing with the codes unless you're like super, super good, right? You could unlock things if you know how to do computer gaming, but if you don't know how to do computer gaming, you cannot unlock things, right? Because it's somebody else's game. When you're dealing in banking, that is someone else's game. You have to understand the rules fully, and we are not authorized, and it even says it on the checks, authorized. You were given authority to sign the check for the entity because you are the authorized representative for the U.S. citizen. So when it comes to like trying to deal with bills of exchange, over the last 10 years I have watched 9-10 people go to jail for dealing with negotiable instruments, trying to make bonds, trying to do bills of exchange, trying to do all kinds of things that they were very learned in, but didn't know enough and didn't do it quite right, or weren't authorized to enact in that manner. And I even told people on one of my lives or on one of my videos, I've seen somebody get bonds into the Treasury, and they got it through and it worked. And then the IRS basically came after them and put them in jail because they're not authorized to do that, even though they did it. It's like they did it. They did everything perfect. They got it through, and there was no problems. Everything was aligned with how it's supposed to be, 100%. All 9, 10, or 11 things that have to be exactly precise in order to get a bond through. And we're not authorized to do bonds in that manner. But I have playlists on my profile that can show you how to discharge debt publicly and privately and set off stuff. Even paying in Federal Reserve notes is setting something off. So Veronica, big love. Thank you × 7 again. Much appreciated. My beautiful moderator and supporter. I am very appreciative. Michelle, too bad for you. You actually have to claim no copyright to the music unless the artist with the music. So I did. You have to click copyright use on every single video that you post, and I did, but I didn't know that it was a video that the user, which was ASAP Rocky, is not allowed. So certain artists allow certain music to go out to certain platforms, and I noticed this on YouTube because I play soft music in the background. You know, I have like a playlist of love songs that I play on, and there's a lot of times on YouTube that it says Russia will not allow my video to be played in their continent or their country because I have played, you know, something from, you know, freaking Justin Bieber or, you know, something weird or random, because, you know, it's just not allowed. But TikTok, apparently the ASAP Rocky song is not allowed on TikTok without authorized use from, you know, I'm not calling ASAP for that. Like, I'm good. All right, so all credits 92. What would it take to get back to a true republic? All right, so this is the hardest part to realize. The republic is still operating in the background, and my understanding is number 45 did a lot to reestablish that, including transferring assets and stuff from the bankrupt corporation known as the U.S. and stuff like that. But the truth is that it is going to take a lot of effort from each individual to govern themselves. And we're in the position we're at is because nobody wants to govern themselves. They want to be governed by somebody else, and that's the maxim at play. You can either govern yourself, or it will most assuredly be done for you. And that's where we're at now, is everybody wants to use the benefits and privileges of Federal Reserve notes. They don't want to hold true title to car. They don't want to understand how corporations operate, the banking system, any of this stuff. So the big daddy, who we call, you know, governments, they do it for us, and that's what they were originally established for, is to provide services for we the people, you know. But they do these smoke and mirrors and little moves, and that's, you know, over the course of, you know, 10 years, 30 years, you can completely re-educate an entire population about everything. It just slowly takes, like, slowly creeping on to the children's education, and slowly removing and changing things in the public and pushing mainstream narratives. And there's so many studies on this, on how to take over an economy of a continent, how to control the population, how to manipulate people. Like, they know all, they've broken all this stuff down. You got to think during Operation Paperclip, when they took all the scientists from Germany, and then our NASA program, suddenly we had rockets because we had all these brilliant German scientists and stuff. Like, they have stuff in the private that they're not releasing to us, that they know about, that would blow your mind. You know, it would just blow your mind, some of the stuff, some of the free energy, some of the technology and stuff and that's what Nassara and Gassara was supposed to release. And I think 9/11 stopped that originally, and then you know, something's happening with the financial system now. I don't know what's going on. It seems like the world reserve currency is changing. But to get back to a true republic would really take all of us individually, one-on-one, being responsible and governing ourselves. And the truth is that the republic is still operating in the background, and you can mail through the republic for 3 cents anywhere in America by doing general delivery, non-domestic, without the United States, and using the public law that the postal masters and stuff are. Well, we're postal masters. We actually receive, sort, and gather mail and distribute it and stuff, but the postal office is bound by. All right, some of the lower people at the checkout line might not know what you're doing. If you give them a 3-cent stamp, they'll be like, this isn't enough. But if you throw it in the box and it goes through one of the regional processing centers, it will get where it's got to go, because you can mail 3 cents outside of the U.S. in the Republic for 3 cents. But you don't want to use zip codes. You don't want to use 2-letter abbreviations of states, and put general delivery, non-domestic. All right, Willie Johnson. You can't send it to the CFOs to go to the trustee and the indentured trustee for canceling debt. Oh, Willie, I wish you'd have watched my last video. You don't have an indentured trustee, not unless you've appointed one or established one. The CFO is one of the 3 officers that can bind a corporation into contractual obligations. And whenever you're trying to do private administrative procedures, whenever you're trying to do try to enforce your law, you want to deal with one of those 3 entities. And you can also CC the IRS or whatever. So I've done all this stuff, so I know it works. But I've never seen one person ever show me who there are trustees at banks, but they're not yours. And I've actually talked to a bank to get a trustee, and it is expensive. It is not very cheap at all. Now, when you start doing back office banking, that's a different story. You start dipping into the private assets of securities and stuff like that, and transferring and protocols and stuff. Yeah, then you can get a trustee, because you're going to be transferring massive amounts of money. You can do all kinds of things once you do a lot of research. And one of my books, there's a few things, guys, that I wish I could find that I never will again. There's a couple videos. One of the videos shows where the Tartarian technology of the ancient temples, where they had actually capacitors inside of the atmospheric antenna energy harvesters. You could tell that it was a battery inside of the ball on top of the old ruins. Like, it had one split open, and they even had guards, and somehow this guy got around the guards, filmed the freaking inside of one of these little rock balls that were on top of the atmospheric antenna energy harvester, and you could clearly tell that the material inside of it was for conducting electricity and for harvesting and gathering energy and stuff like that. I wish I could find that video. I don't think I ever will again. There's another video about Trump, and I actually tried to talk about it on a live, and I got cut, so I'm not gonna talk about that anymore. And the other thing was, there was a banking book that I found a long time ago, and I doubt I'll ever find it again, but it said all banks are U.S. citizens. And then in my mind, I was thinking, if A equals B, why doesn't B equal A, where all U.S. citizens are banks, right? If all banks are U.S. citizens, that to me means also that all U.S. citizens are banks. So the U.S. citizen is a bank, and you can do things in the public and private, but you have to be fully educated. And one of the worst things we do is step out into fights and on the battlefield having no armor, no understanding, limited information, or massive amounts of misinformation. Typically, if it's very easy, it's not correct, because in order to get somebody into a private administrative procedure, in order to set off a debt or something like that, like if I get a photo bill in the mail for $50, $100, like, I'll pay it, because the amount of time that it's going to take for me to do an administrative procedure, or to go up to court and say that you weren't because it's not proper service. You're not giving proper service by sending me something in the mail saying, oh yeah, you turned right on a red light or something stupid like that. My YouTube is on my website, not important, and it's all my social media is linked on my website, including all of my playlists and a lot of different paths for education depending on what you're trying to learn. Let me go back up, because I think I missed some. Thanks for the follow, Ramona. Rebecca, I'm trying to accept titles, rights, interests, and transfer to my principal balance. Yeah, so you're learning from somebody else's process, and that's not what I teach at all. In order to get titles and rights and interests, you have to use an entity that is not a U.S. citizen, because they can't hold assets in the public. You can go through a U.S. citizen's Social Security bonds in order to do stuff in the private, but you have to use agents. You have to use agents that are authorized from Congress to do certain things with securities, with interest and stuff like that. Banks are authorized to monetize our signatures on promissory notes, like that, stuff like that. We're not authorized to use 37 CFR stamps or whatever it is for bonds and endorsement and deal and bills of exchange, negotiable instruments in certain ways, and we get all hemmed up for our lack of knowledge. So, but I don't teach titles, rights, and interests trying to transfer to your principal's balance. Like that to me doesn't make any sense at all, because by principal, who's your principal, and how did all the obligations on how's the double entry bookkeeping going to balance out on the private and public side of that, of what you're trying to do? Are you trying to put all that stuff on the U.S. citizen stuff? The U.S. citizen is someone else's property. All right, Mimi. What do you mean by the Constitution is suspended? Could you explain in depth? Yes, the Constitution is suspended during times of war, and it is definitely suspended to enemies. Enemies do not have rights. So when you have to come from peace and from love, and know what equity is, and know how to bring your own law in, and be in rights, and be in the republic, or something like that. Because when you try to deal in the public arena, now, who's bound by the Constitution are public servants. And I have if you want to watch something in depth, watch my video on the Constitution, Mimi. I made a whole video about it. Public officers who swear an oath to uphold the Constitution are bound by that, but we the people are not. You're not listed on the Constitution. You didn't sign a contract that says you're on the Constitution. You didn't swear an oath to uphold the Constitution. Unless you did, if you swore an oath to uphold the Constitution or incorporated into your status declaration or something, then you're not a party to that contract. And how the enforcers of the U.S. work is basically during times of war and to enemies and stuff. There's very limited. That's why they perpetuate emergency war powers, because it supersedes the Constitution. But if you're coming from peace and in love, and they harm you, the human, even though you're the authorized representative for the U.S. citizen, if they harm you, you can call them out on constitutional law because they are bound by it. You're not, but you can invoke it on them. But if you want to see a more in-depth explanation, watch my video on the Constitution. Kaylin Diala, Mimi, look up the banking constitution. That'd be interesting to look up. Thank you, moderator. Pinned a comment. Still would like his explanation. Oh, gotcha. Sorry, I'm a little behind. Sometimes I go on bants and tantrums and rants and stuff. Apparently, I make bloated comments. That's interesting. So I already said what my YouTube is. Mimi, yep. We are brokerages. Yeah, there's a lot of things. Mimi Olam, is SESTQ created for us, U.S. citizens only? My understanding is it was actually created in, so every U.S. citizen is an underwriter for the Crown, because the Crown sanctioned the United States because they retain positions of Arch Treasurer and Prince Elector, and the U.S. citizen is a franchise of the District of Columbia, who is, one of the elite's three main powers on this earth. And my understanding is that all bankrupt corporations or companies or countries operate typically in the same way. All the courts are pretty much the same way. All the money's backed by nothing. It's all kind of, except for the BRICS nations, who's starting to become very powerful. But in the UK, I know for sure, and UK-owned territories like Australia and certain things like that, and the United States, yes. When it comes to other places, I don't see why not. If they have a typical social security type system, like Canada, is almost everything's the same as it is here in the U.S. So Canada's have something called a SIN number, SIN, and if their social security stuff is typically set up the same way, then yeah, everything's the same way. Where you and I can tell you how you can find out is here in the U.S. The Social Security Administration said that you are only allowed 10 Social Security cards in your lifetime, and each one of those represent 1/10 of your estate. Now, if you go to another country and it says the same thing, you're only allowed to be issued 10 after a certain date, and I don't remember what the date was, but once that date became whatever date it was, and they made that announcement, all the bond numbers on the back of Social Security cards became red. And then you're only allowed 10 of those in your entire lifetime. So look at another country and talk to them and say, are you only allowed 10 Social Security cards in your entire lifetime? And then you'll have your answer. It's basically the same thing, but it typically looks similar everywhere I go. I'll try to do some more digging around in Turkey when I'm out there. Mimi, okay, I need that for my case. I will look for it. You talking about how the Constitution is suspended? Well, you can watch my video, but you can invoke. So any public servant is bound by the Constitution. They swear an oath to uphold it, and they also swear an oath to uphold the Constitution and protect the United States against foreign and domestic terrorists and enemies. And a U.S. citizen is an enemy. So you got to be careful what you're representing when you go inside of there. If you're representing your own sovereign nation, then you're good. If your sovereign nation was registered to do business in the public in a federal zone, typically Indians have an exception or an exempt. I don't know if they're tax accepted or tax exempt. But there is a difference between the two. TC, you're always so informative. Thank you. Yeah, well, I've spent a long time to get to this level, and I meet all kinds of people, and everybody's done all different types of amounts of education and trying to learn things, and that's why I try to always come from love and peace and be open to help anybody. I'm here to answer any questions that y'all might have, anything that's bugging you or bothering you. Like, I'm just here with open doors, coming from love, trying to show y'all what's possible, what you can do, what you shouldn't do, and that is honestly one of the hardest things. And one of the people I talked to this week, was it Thursday? It's so frustrating. This was actually the girl that changed my whole outlook on trying to help people, because she is so unlearned and so uneducated and has no clue about anything. But she's a mom and she's busy and blah blah blah. Well, I'm a dad. I'm busy. I got a job. I got all kinds of stuff too. Well, she needed her hand held through every single step, and it is a nightmare. It is even if she was paying me, it would still be a nightmare, because I'm not bound by money. But even if it was my job and she was paying me, it is an absolute nightmare when I give you a video and you're not grasping anything that's in it, and you still repeating stuff that doesn't, like she doesn't understand that the U.S. is a corporation, like she doesn't understand that this, that, and the other. I was trying to help her get a title over her child, and it was a grueling month of effort. Like, it was just painful, and she literally made me understand that I cannot hold everybody's hand through every single step and lead you through things that you don't understand, because at the end of the day, if you're ever confronted, if you create a document, okay, great, you can have true title over your children, but if social services comes up and tries to take your child from you, do you know how to enforce it? Do you know? Because I'm not going to be there in the court case for you. I can't be everywhere at once. That's why I try my best to give everybody the education and tell y'all, if y'all aren't ready to engage in certain things, then you shouldn't be involved in it, because you can get hurt. You can get your head busted over. Don't try to go be sovereign in court if you're not very, very familiar with how courtroom mechanics work, etiquettes, how contract law works, like all these things. It takes time, and if you're going to go jump out in both feet in the water, a lot of people are going to sink, because when you're dealing in the commercial realm, it's a ruthless system that doesn't care about the truth. It cares about what you can prove, claim, and enforce, and that's just how it is. All right, Plank Space Agent. You're the second person that has called me an agent. On my last video, I enjoy upsetting all the people that are teaching everybody false information and trying to lead people astray, especially people that have to pay for it when I'm here giving free. Oh, not me. I thought you were calling me an agent. Well, okay, so there's only one person that called me agent. They went on my video and they were like, blah blah, live birth certificate, you're another paid for actor, or something like that. I just thought it was so funny, because I come to try to set the record straight on a lot of things, and if somebody wants to come on my video and say, hey, you don't have the full knowledge or truth or understanding or whatever, I say, hey, then teach me. Like, I'm here to teach. And then they never reply. They never respond. They'll come on there making claims like you have to have 2 wedding signatures on a contract in order for it to be a contract. And I'm like, show me where that is written anywhere. Like, I was like, I'd love to learn where you got that information from. And no response, Or I'll have somebody think that they're a human that has a tax identification number, and I'll just send them, boom, I'll hit them with everything, like, and then they try to, they still have an attitude, and I'm just sitting here coming from love, coming from peace, giving all the court cases, the citations, the annotated statutes, the codes, the definitions, all this stuff. Boom, 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 boom. And they're just like, they're not grateful, they're not happy. They're, it's like, I should have changed your entire life and world perspective, letting you know that the U.S. citizen is a corporation. Like, don't be like that. Mimi, right, knowing how to enforce it. Yes. So knowing how to enforce it is one of the hardest steps to take, especially when it comes to bringing your private administrative procedure or your judgment into the public, because the courts are there for our benefits. A lot of us think that they're enemies, the cops are enemies, all that. It's not how the system works. It's very harmonic if you understand the big picture. And when you do your private administrative procedure, you can go into small claims court and you can enforce it just like a debt collector would be. And if you don't have very good knowledge on how to enforce stuff and through the courts, find somebody who's a friend of a debt collector and find out how they do it. And they could walk you through all the steps, because they do the same thing that we can do. But it is what it is. So, Mimi, no one has the full knowledge, so let's learn as we go. I appreciate. Yes, that's right. I'm still learning. I'm just a baby in this game. Like, there's people that are so, like David Windmiller. Like, he blows my mind. He's so freaking intelligent and smart. That it. I've always learned that I'm not the hottest guy out there. I'm not the smartest guy. I'm not the fun. There's always somebody that's a little bit better in certain areas. So I try to just be a jack of all trades and trying to learn about different things. Vistas Plains, what was we just talking about? Well, we talked about a lot of subjects. I've been on here for an hour, And if you want to watch this live, it will be posted on YouTube shortly after I get off, and the audio will be on my Telegram group. All my social media links are on my website. Veronica has posted it about 15 times. My website is located on my profile page of TikTok. You can click on that. You'll see my social media links. I have all my playlists linked on there. I have playlists on my profile page of TikTok to help understand a lot of things too. Chunky Monkey. How can I place a lien on my straw man as a Canadian? So you don't want to do that. You're the authorized representative for that entity, and you don't have to use it. You know, you're already basically have the power of attorney to do whatever you want with that thing. You know, and you put a lien on it, you're going to harm the credit on that thing, and then the lien, a lot of people try to teach to make bonds, and we're not authorized to make bonds. Most bonds, you can make some, but when you start dealing and trying to do stuff through the Treasury or the big corporations and stuff like that, we're dealing in someone else's financial system that was established, and you have to know all the rules to the game, and we know very, very little. There are books out there that, like, I was talking to somebody on Thursday, and it's funny because all the stuff that has taken me about 10 years to learn is like basically day 3 of the Skull and Bones Society, like learning. Like it's just what they teach like on day 3, and it's like it took me 10 years to put all these pieces together because it's hidden in secrets that they don't want to release to the public, because if the public knew how everything worked, there would be a riot overnight, like immediately. If they knew how the financial system really worked, and they've even said that on the records, like if the public understood how the banking system actually worked, there would be riots overnight, like immediately. And that's why when you learn how to go through the DTC and do private asset banking and stuff like that, you have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, because if you release this knowledge to the public, it will destroy the economy overnight. And the economy, like I said, if you look at the big picture and you understand how everything kind of operates, I don't understand everything, but I've got a good clue. And if you look at it all, it's really a harmonic system. So it just takes time. Professor Ban, my YouTube channel is linked on my profile page on my website. So if you go on my website, on my profile page of TikTok, all of my social media is on there. I'm on True Social, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Telegram. And Telegram, I'll put the audio of this live on there, and the video will be on YouTube later. So, all right, guys, Mimi, right, someone else's banking system. That's right, correct. Now, if you want to start dealing in your own commodities, you want to start dealing in gold or silver or oil, or trading and borrowing and bartering and exchanging and stuff like that, you're not dealing with their system. You can do all kinds of things outside of that system. So, I'm at the bottom of all the basically questions. If anybody has any other questions, if not, this is Friday. I'm here for y'all. I'm here to help anybody and everybody. And all right, so user 559-2038-401-704. What's your latest realization on the spiritual side? So something really cool happened. One of my dear friends from TikTok did some spiritual healing for me and helped me out. And they basically explained how your subconscious records everything from your very earliest ages, like everything you've ever eaten, every piece of clothes you've ever put on, anything that's ever happened to you. And she basically went through my consciousness and accessed stuff that I have inherited from like 10 generations back, like certain issues from family members from 10 members back, and she helped like amend and heal some of my aura and chakras, and deal with some of the bad negative vibes and energy that transferred from, because you can inherit stuff, from past ancestors and stuff through generations and stuff. And so it was really cool. I had never seen this or done this, but she actually like broke down and could understand how different traumas and stuff, like she said I had a traumatic experience when I was 3. Like I have no clue about that, but my subconscious did. And I love her to death, and she's a great teacher and great healer, and it was pretty cool. So that was neat. I basically got healed on a lot of past traumas and a lot of past stuff that I inherited, and I could literally when I was on the phone with her, I didn't feel anything, and she was like, how do you feel? Because you just had an entire tree of like negativity uprooted. And I was like, I feel fine. I didn't feel anything. But when I got off the phone with her, I could literally feel in my brain that stuff had been changed, and it was so cool. Like, you know, because I'm very, very spiritually sensitive and stuff, like through my third eye, and I can sense certain things. And it was pretty neat. Like, I enjoyed it, and I was like, I wish everybody would go through this healing stuff. It's so awesome. It was really neat. So that was my latest spiritual stuff. Bye bye, Mimi. Thanks for coming on. Check me out later, or check out that video if you can. If you can't find it, I'll send you a link. Professor Band, should birth certificate be authenticated? If so, how complicated is that? The birth certificate can be authenticated if you're leaving the country and trying to establish your corporation somewhere else, like China or Egypt or something like that, or if you're trying to go through the DTC. It's not a very complicated process. It's probably going to cost you a couple $100 or whatever, and most people try to teach you, who are teaching you falsely, to do that to 2 or 3 of them, and then get that back and then send it to, you know, somebody or whatever. But you're basically, that's someone else's record for a corporation that they created, and you just have a really cool record once you authenticate it. It has some neat seals on it and stuff like that, so it just makes it a really cool piece of paper. But it is, I have a video on the 10 things that a birth certificate is. I believe it's my Commerce 2 video, and I have playlists to help re-educate if y'all want to go through that. So guys, this live will be on YouTube. Feel free to check it out when you get a chance. It's, my YouTube's linked on my website, on my profile page. If y'all don't have any more questions, I appreciate all of y'all being here and becoming educated, and thanks for all the likes, the shares, the follows, the love and support. I'm grateful for everybody, and just hope that y'all continue to, you know, walk and grow through this life, because there's not a lot of people that want to be educated or try to edify everybody's, you know, human auras and bodies and stuff like that. Use your 559 bunch of numbers. What do you know about the cerebral cortex and how it relates to trauma? So when it comes to the brain is like the epicenter of spiritual energy. It's the crown chakra. It's the third eye. It's the seat where, you know, basically a lot of stuff happens through. When you're talking about cerebral cortex, you're talking about natural matter, the brain. Even though the brain houses and harnesses a lot of electrical stimuli and stuff like that, you can actually heal stuff with your brain, inside and outside of your body. But the brain, yes, you can traumatize it. It's almost like a computer. If you get hit in the head with a baseball bat, it's like grabbing a computer and slamming it on the ground. Like, is it going to work right after that? It's possible. Is it going to be a little messed up? It's very possible also, you know. So each section of the brain has different duties and tasks, and it's just kind of how it's all set up. I'm not like super proficient in like the layout of the brain or how certain things. I'm just real familiar with the third eye and the third ventricle, that basically is the mercy seat, and where, you know, the most holiest of all, where basically your spiritual eye of unity is in the spiritual light. So all right guys, I appreciate all your love and support. Thank y'all for coming out. Watch this video on YouTube if you want. I hope y'all have a great weekend. Thank you for coming on. Enjoy your time off if y'all didn't work or whatever, and thanks for all the love and support, guys. I will catch y'all when I catch y'all, probably next week. All right, see you later. Bye.